Shalom, shalom, shalom. It's your brothers from the Hopeful Elect, man. The brothers Danal, brother Azrael, which is God is my help. The brother Obadiah, man, and the brother, Isaiah, coming at you with another Soul Food Sunday is what I like to call it, right? Um, but more importantly, just another opportunity to kind of get on before the people, share a little knowledge and wisdom, of the scriptures, right? And kind of help, I guess you could say, open the eyes of the people who may need to hear this. So, first and foremost, before we get into the word, we always got to start by giving all praise, glory, and honor be to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And we do so by way of his only begotten Son, who served as an instrument of salvation for the nation, right? Want to say shalom to the viewers who are tuning in live. But if you're not tuning in live and you're watching the replay, we also want to say shalom to you and the water for taking the time to sit down, break bread with your brethren and, come here. I guess you could say our 2 cents about what the Lord had written in his word, what he had preserved in his word for us this day. So, we want to say shalom to the brothers who labor and do the work of the Lord, right? And we want to say shalom to the sisters who are doing who are doing their part, putting their brick in, as the brothers like to say, to build up their households, to hold their husbands down, to be great helpmeets, but not only that, to be great wives, to serve as righteous examples for the younger women, right, who have their house in order and subjection. Shalom to the brothers who are doing the same, getting their house in order. Shalom to the brothers who are building themselves up in the spirit to one day receive a wife. Shalom to the sisters who are building themselves up in the spirit to receive a husband. Shalom to the elders. Shalom to all the great men of Israel aforetime. So um, we want to come with you with, again, Wisdom of Solomon 13 today, just going a little bit into uh, the worship of nature, right? Because our people, one thing about us is we love to gravitate and cleave the things that the Lord didn't tell us to cleave to an extent. So before we go to the book of Wisdom of Solomon, let's get the first precept and let's get the book of Matthew chapter 4 and verse number 4. Matthew 4 and 4.
Book of Matthew, chapter 4 and verse 4. He answered and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God."
So the reason I titled this Soul Food Sundays is because this is food for the soul, right? And it's important to know that because, wow, man should not live by bread alone, right? It's not just the physical food that we consume that's going to preserve us and keep us alive, but the spiritual food, the soul food is what's going to help preserve us and keep us alive, right? Um, so it's important to know that. I call this precept Wendy's, man, because Wendy's got that 4 for 4 deal that you can go get you 4 items off the menu for $4. Now they didn't change that to the 5 for 5, the $5 meal deal, Biggie Bag, whatever they call it now. But nonetheless, it's still a precept to just kind of show how we think about the physical a lot, but sometimes we got to remember the spiritual really matters most, right? Let's get one more precept, another precept, excuse me. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 7 and verse 2. Proverbs 7 and 2. All right.
In Proverbs, chapter 7 and 2. Keep my commandments and live, and my law as the apple of thine eye.
Again, man, we keep the commandments of the Lord and we live, right? And we got to keep his law as the apple of our eye, you know. Now what in his law, would go with this lesson, right? What in this law would kind of go with making sure that what we're going to talk about today, we don't deviate from. Let's go to the book of Exodus, chapter 20, right? we could have got other scriptures to show that when Christ said it, we can go back to the law, right? So when you go to Matthew 4:4, you could go to Deuteronomy 8:3 and kind of, I guess you could say, according to the law, establish the matter, because the law states that and out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall the matter be established. So we're here to establish, what it says in the law as pertaining to the topic of discussion tonight, right? And you'll see what the topic is once we get to the book of Wisdom of Solomon. But right now, we're in Exodus chapter 20. Let's start reading at verse number 1. If you could start reading, the brother Obadiah, could you start reading verses 1 through 3?
Khan, this is the book of Exodus, chapter 20 and verse 1. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Khan. So again, the topic of discussion is, worshiping the things that we shouldn't worship, right? In Wisdom of Solomon 13 in particular, which we'll go to, is speaking specifically about the worship of nature, right? And how our people gravitate towards the things that the Most High created and not the Creator, right? This is a direct transgression of the very first commandment. I'm not even going to say the very first commandment that he gave us, but I'm going to say it for the sake of the context, right? This is the very first commandment that was written down on the two tablets of stone, right? No gods before the Most High God. And the problem is that at camp, we call the big 3, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, right? Because we're talking about in reference to the black community, even if, right? And we don't ever say, even if you take God as the example, we don't never say that at camp, because we don't want to remove God, the Most High God, from the situation, because he is the situation, right? So I'm just saying this right now for the sake of explanation, that we call those the big 3 because even we have brothers and sisters that have no belief or understanding of who the Most High God is. But even if they did the simple things that the Lord gave in his word, you would come to find that it would be better off for our communities, right? So now, going to the book of Exodus chapter 20 and verse number 1, a lot of people don't even realize that, as well as the other commandments they transgress, they do that because this is the main one that we forget, right? We should have no other gods before the Most High. And that is exactly why we have people in all manner of things, right? Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, and let's go to verse 15. We're going to read verse 15, and then we're going to go to verse 25. Because, again, we're trying to establish the matter. And the matter is that we have our brothers and sisters who really don't believe in who the world, well, not who the world calls Jesus Christ, right? Because a lot of people do believe in Christ. But the problem is a lot of people forget the author, the everlasting Father, right? A lot of people forget the Ancient of Days is what he would be called, right? So let's read this in Deuteronomy 28 and 15.
It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 15. This Deuteronomy 28 and 15?
Nah, this ain't Deuteronomy 28. This is Deuteronomy 29.
Oh, okay.
Brother just one chapter over. It's cool.
Okay, so I know that ain't.
You can leave it wide too. Yeah, you don't got to click on the verse. Just leave it like that. Khan.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou art not hearkening to the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee, overtake thee.
Right. Why did he say that? Let's read verse 14, right? Because when you started Deuteronomy 28:1, all it's giving you is the blessings that come from following and serving the Most High God. And he concluded with the blessings by stating this in verse 14. Somebody can read Deuteronomy 28:14.
14. And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them.
Right. We should not turn from the words of the Lord. Again, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every what that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Father? Every
With
word.
the word.
Every word. So I wasn't going to do it, but for the sake of just staying in the same book, referencing the, you know what I'm saying, the original, right? Could we please get Deuteronomy 8 and 3? Deuteronomy 8 and 3, we can come back to chapter 28. Again, Deuteronomy is probably my favorite book. I always fluctuate though, because I have seasons where this book might be my favorite, that book. It's no really one book that I just always hold supreme. Maybe it would be the book of Isaiah, of course, you know. But again, outside of Isaiah, man, you know, Deuteronomy is really that book, because it's a lot of things that was made clear and plain upon tables when you read it, right? If a brother could, let's read Deuteronomy 8 and 3 real quick.
Deuteronomy 8 and verse number 3. It says, "And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live."
So when it was clear in Matthew 4, right, it came from somewhere. Deuteronomy 8, the law, right? Hey, it's clear that man doth not live by bread alone, right? And we have to understand that when we go back, can we go back to Deuteronomy 28, verse 14, right? We have to understand that, again, when the Most High speaks, his word doesn't return to him void, and he's not going to speak in circles, right, as men speak. He's not going to beat around the bush. He's going to make it plain. He's going to tell you why he did something, and he's going to tell you why you should do something, and he's going to make it clear what happens if you don't do it. That's why a lot of people hate the law of God, because it makes it clear that you can't live this way. And they think Christ came to do away with the things that the Father told us that we can't do, and that's just not true. And that's why
Right.
you have a lot of people transgressing that first commandment, right?
Yep.
Let's read this in Deuteronomy 28 and 14 one more time.
Deuteronomy 28 and 14, it says, "And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods, to serve them."
Right. Now let's read verse 15.
Verse 15, "But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments and statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee."
So if we didn't listen to the words of the Lord, if we thought that the food physically that we eat was enough for us, and that we didn't have to devour the words of the Lord, you know, in our soul, we were going to be cursed, right? Now let's jump down to verse number 25. Brother Obadiah, could you read this Deuteronomy 28:25?
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 25. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thy enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
Khan, because we didn't listen to the Lord, we were going to be removed into every kingdom of the earth. Well, we have to remember the importance of the reason this is important, right, is because every kingdom may have served a different God. Every kingdom may have worshiped a different entity. And due to us being removed into these kingdoms, our people were subjugated to worshiping the idols, the deities, the images that these kingdoms had set up, right? Now let's jump down to verse number 28.
Verse 28.
And we're going to read 29 as well.
The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart, and thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee.
So again, we're going to be smitten with madness, blindness, astonishment of heart, right? And not only that, talking about groping at noonday, again, we're going to be, it's like having our eyes closed and just trying to grab grab something, right? We trying to just feel for something because we can't see, right? And we're going to be oppressed and spoiled forevermore. Being given over to a kingdom that doesn't serve our God, that doesn't teach our laws, that strips us of our heritage is oppression. And the problem is a lot of people think because we don't have to follow this law through our liberty in Christ, they think it's freedom. And that's the deception, you know? And that's why it's important to understand that we don't live by bread alone, but every word that proceeded out of the mouth of the Most High. Again, we keep his commandments and live, right? And his law as the apple of our eye. And that is to never change, right? So we got to understand the history of why we're in these predicaments. Even if I think I missaid that word, right? But we got to understand why we're in these predicaments in the first place. And the reason is because, again, we transgress the commandments of the Lord, right? Now let's go to the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, right? Because the topic is following after other gods, right? And the problem is that we shouldn't be doing it. But people don't realize that we do it even to this very day. They think it's rooted in spirituality, right? But it's not rooted in spirituality. It's rooted in wickedness and idolatry and Satanism. It's rooted in all the things that we shouldn't be doing, right? So, Brother Azrael, could you read this Wisdom of Solomon 13, starting at verse 1?
Come. Wisdom of Solomon 13:1. Surely vain are all men by nature who are ignorant of God, and could not out of the good things that are seen know him that is. Neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster.
Con. So let's just break this verse down. It says, when it says, surely vain are all men by nature, right? All is vanity, one, right? But let's keep reading. Salakia. It says, who are ignorant of God. Like we stated before, Deuteronomy 28 and 25. Because we were removed into every kingdom of the earth, a lot of our people forgot who the Most High God is. A lot of people forgot who the Most High God was. And a lot of people grew up and never knew the Most High God. Some people, matter of fact, even became fools. Why would I say they make them fools? Whole Wisdom of Solomon, go back to the tab of Deuteronomy and pull up Psalms chapter 14 and verse number 1. Psalms 14 and 1. These people became foolish. And what made them foolish, right? Let's read this in Psalms 14 and 1, Brother Obadiah. If you could read this.
Con. This is the book of Psalms, chapter 14 and verse 1. To the chief musician, a psalm of David.
Right?
The fool has said in his heart, there is no God.
Wait, read that again.
The fool has said in his heart, there is no God.
So a lot of our people didn't even think there was a God. They became foolish because we were removed into all these kingdoms that worship all these different gods, and they made no mention of our God, and they didn't have no belief in the Most High God, right? A lot of people didn't have a belief anymore at all because of the things that they seen with their eyes, because again, they became foolish through transgression of the Lord, the law of the Lord, right? And now you see David, even in his psalm, has said, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God, right? Let's keep reading. Let's finish it out.
They are corrupt. They have done abominable.
Yeah,
abominable work. There is
Indeed.
none. There is none that does good. So like it.
right. Hey, there's none that doeth good. No, not one, man. That's Ecclesiastes 7 and 20, right? We got to keep things in a perspective, you know. A lot of our people were corrupt, right? Even us, brothers, before we came into the truth, have done corrupt actions, right? It's only through the grace of the Most High that we were able to have an opportunity to find the book of the covenant like King Josiah did and start following the laws of God. The same way King Josiah implemented the people to follow his law, right? It's only through the Most High's grace and mercy, right? And so when people bring up, you know, this is not off track, right? This is on the same track. When people bring up the grace that they believe Christ brought, right? It's kind of, I guess you could say, asinine to just forget all of the grace and mercy that the Most High even bestowed upon us. And not only that, it's not because Christ didn't bring any grace, but it's because they think that the grace that Christ brought gives us the liberty to now forget the law of our God. But remember, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Now, how does that even go together, right? Well, it's just simply like this. You can acknowledge the fact that we have grace, or we're under a period of grace, right? We can agree. But the problem is when now that you feel as if that grace separates us from the thing that connected us to the Father, that law, the covenant, the things written therein, all of that connects us, right? All of that puts us on a track to get in his good grace, right? Because again, Galatians 2:17, if I'm found a sinner while saying that I have grace in Christ, is Christ therefore the minister of sin? God forbid. You know? Now, again, this is all because we're in captivity. And this is all because people forgot the law. And now there was a need for a mediator to come and give us an example, show us a better way to live, give us an understanding of how to fulfill the will of God, right? And it was all because, again, the first covenant that the Father made wasn't enough to keep our people from going off. Simply saying, the bread that the Father gave them wasn't enough to fulfill them and satisfy their hunger. We've seen it when they came out of Egypt and we were in the wilderness, and how the Lord did give them manna, but they did complain. We seen that when the Lord said it in his own word in Deuteronomy 8. He gave us the bread that neither our fathers knew nor we knew. But he did that for the purpose of showing us that it wasn't just physical bread alone that we should eat that would make us full. And that's the thing that people have forgotten, is that the word of the Lord is enough for us, right? And people think that the word of the Lord is sort of a bad thing because of some of the judgments that are associated with it, not knowing that you wouldn't face those judgments if you realize his word is enough for us, right? If you gravitated to his word. So let's go back to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 13. Because all I'm saying at the end of the day, right, I may be taking a longer way to get there, but all I'm saying at the end of the day is that a lot of these things happen because we broke the Lord's covenant. That's simply all I'm saying. That's how we became foolish, and that's how we get situations where, like David is talking about, the fool in his heart said there is no God. We get people who claim these beliefs like they're agnostic or they're atheists, right? You know, they don't believe in God, you know, or they just choose not to follow God nor Satan, right? Foolish religions and stuff. And then you get people that, again, like in reading in Wisdom of Solomon 13, like we'll go into, people that worship nature or worship the things that the Creator created, not the Creator itself. But let's keep reading.
Come on, verse 2. But deemed either fire or wind or the swift air or the circle of the stars or the violent water or the lights of heaven to be the gods which govern the world.
Matter of fact, man, this reminds me of that anime series called Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Because again, how does it start out? The theme song is earth, wind, fire, air. You know what I'm saying? And the problem is because people glorify these things, right? They glorify the fire. They glorify the wind. They glorify the air. They glorify the stars, right? We got people that are into zodiac signs. We got people that are into, you know, all these, I guess you could say, elements, right? The worship of these elements. But again, they fail to acknowledge that somebody created those elements. Somebody gave those elements a purpose to serve. And those elements abided by the rules that the Creator set, right? Let's read verse 3.
Gone. Verse 3. With whose beauty, if they being delighted, took them to be gods.
Mm-hmm.
Let them know how much better the Lord of them is, for the first author of beauty hath created them.
Right. So our people see how marvelous these things look and they begin to worship, but don't even realize that the first author of beauty created them, right? And that's speaking of the Lord of hosts, you know. We fail to realize that the Most High God is in everything that we see. The Most High God had a hand in everything that we may feel. And so you just have to understand that we have a lot of our people that's going off into these different, I guess you could say, understandings of life, right? People that say, oh, I worship and give reverence to the universe, and the universe this, and the stars and the moon that, we're in Mercury retrograde, and this, that, and the third, right? People don't understand that they're worshiping things that were created for a purpose, right? And that's, again, I know I'm saying that a lot, but that's the point I want to hit on a lot to people who may need to understand why we should come out of these things. Because again, none of the elements that you see, the stars, the moon, the sun, the grass, the concrete, the bugs, the mosquitoes, whatever you worship was created by the first author of beauty, which is the Most High God, right? So we have to turn away from these things, because again, why would you want to give worship to the creation and not the creator, right? It doesn't make sense to me. It's like, let me say, it's just like if somebody bakes a beautiful cake, right? And you have a baker. Matter of fact, one of the brothers' wives on the screen bake. I'm not going to point that brother out, but wife makes beautiful, beautiful desserts, right? It's just like somebody sitting up here reverencing how good this cake looks, when one day that cake will be destroyed, right? That cake means nothing, but they don't give any reverence to the person who was able to have the skill to even make that cake. You see what I'm saying? And that's kind of like foolish to me, because again, it's always the person who can do it is what you should be thinking about in most, as opposed to the thing that they did. You know what I'm saying? Right? Brother put a hey, look, brother put a precept on the screen that we was going to go to anyway. But we can read this right here. I'll read it. It says, Romans 1:25, who have changed the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. We change the truth of the Most High into a lie because we worship and serve the things that he created, right? We want to worship and serve the little homies and not the big homies, right? We want to worship and serve the things that are subservient to someone else. And that is the problem. That's the issue. That's what has us in this position. Let's go to back to Deuteronomy real quick. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 32. Because see, I wasn't going to incorporate this precept in the lesson until the brother Obadiah, hit us up earlier and sent this precept in the chat, right? But it goes right along with, kind of the lesson, right? Because again, not to get nobody lost in the sauce, all I've been saying this whole time is that we broke the covenant of the Lord, so we became foolish people, right? And foolish people do foolish things like worship nature, right? Go ahead, brother Azrael.
Yeah, the average person is stuck in the right now and the right here. Beauty is stunning, right? A lot of times, somebody might give somebody a compliment and be like, oh, you're so stunning. You look stunning in these pictures. That horizon is stunning, right? That's sharp, right? A lot of times beauty is stunning, though. It's captivating, meaning it holds you in the moment when you observe it. A lot of people don't stop to think, why is this horizon taking place? Right? A lot of people don't stop to think when they see a beautiful person, whether it be a man or a woman. I wonder what their parents look like, right? The average person does not ask that, right? But the people that are inquisitive and people that have a mind to want to know deeper, right? They're going to ask those questions like, I wonder what their parents look like. For example, in horse racing, somebody may be like betting on horses. That horse so fast, right? Oh, that horse just won me a bunch of money, right? In the Kentucky Derby. But people that are serious about betting on those horses, they're gonna be like, what line of blood did that horse come from? Who the parents, right? What breed is that horse? They're gonna, so when you're serious about something, right? And when you're genuine and when you're fervent, right, and diligent, you're gonna ask those questions. You're gonna seek the origin of something, right? And you're not gonna be average. But what happens is the majority is average. The majority is captivated and stunned and held in the moment from beauty, right? And beauty itself becomes a stumbling block. Beauty itself becomes a test to a lot of people, right? And a lot of people can't get past beauty, and so a lot of people are going to fall because of it, and they cleave to anything that's shiny and glittery and gold, right? But we understand that all that glitter isn't gold. Time I yield.
Con. And it's the thing is that's why the word even tells us in Sirach, man. Um, I want to say it's Sirach 9, where it says, "Gaze not on a maid, that thou fall not by those things that are precious in her." You know, um, because the people see the beauty of these things, they're gazing on these things and they find it beautiful. And then the people begin to destroy themselves by the beauty that they find of the Most High's works in creation. But again, not the creator. So therefore, it puts people in a pickle. You know what I'm saying? People love the look. People it sounds crazy. It sounds delusional. But again, we became a foolish people when we transgressed the commandments of the Lord and we started following the ways of other nations. So what I'm saying is that it may sound crazy, but there are people who worship these elements, who worship nature because of the beauty that they get from it, right? Like I got a op whose wives like to take picture of sunsets. She's not a worshiper of sunsets, so let's get that straight. But what I am saying is that there are people that do worship the sun because they like the way that it looks in the sky when it is setting, right? It's a beautiful thing to gaze upon. It's something that should make you appreciate the Most High's creations. But there are people on the left hand side that literally say, "Oh, the sun is so beautiful when it sets like that. How does it do that?" And they literally worship the sun because of it. You know?
Hey, another example of us just being captivated and stuff and worshiping beauty. In our community, people, they pretty much worship Scat Pat, right? They worship Corvettes and Lamborghinis. They worship Louis Vuittons, right? And they don't stop to think, who's the creator of this? Who's the owner of this? And before you know it, they may be, glorifying and worshiping something material that's the founder is a racist. They don't even know, right? Because it looks beautiful, right? They don't stop and ask themselves who created it. And that's an example of idolatry, because the Lord is telling us, hey man, some of this stuff that y'all are worshiping, one, y'all don't stop and realize that I created it. And two, some of the stuff y'all worshiping, y'all don't even know what y'all worshiping. Y'all just looking at something beautiful and acting like Eve, going to eat from it.
Con, man. Just like it's just like our people when they go and they buying, they shopping at Gucci, they going to buy Louis Vuitton, and they go in these stores and they get racially profiled. Our people are so destroyed in the mindset, period, that instead of when they get racially profiled or discriminated against, instead of leaving the store and going to spend their money elsewhere, they'll take their money and say, "Oh, let me show you that I'm not one of these regular dudes. I got money." And they go spend a whole bag inside of this store that they just got discriminated against, right? Again, that's our people's obsession with the wrong thing, right? Whether it be that Louis V or that Gucci or that Prada, that Chanel, that Audemars Piguet, whatever it is, our people have an obsession with these things, right? They desire these things. Not only that, some people do that just to prove a point about how much money they got. So the people desire respect. Our people desire, I guess you could say, feeling like they're that inward. You know what I'm saying? Feeling like they're somebody bigger than what they are. You know what I'm saying? And we was talking about this briefly before the call, how sometimes, man, we got to remember that we're nothing in the eyes of the Most High. And I'm not saying we're nothing as he doesn't have no thought for us. But what I am saying is that the Lord doesn't need one of us. You know, the Lord doesn't need us. So we got to keep ourselves in a humble spirit. You know, we got to keep ourselves in a lowly spirit at all times, not as in to say lowly as in, oh, woe is me, but in a spirit of humility, because again, our people are so prideful that we start desiring these things that we shouldn't desire. We start wanting the things that we shouldn't have. Instead of finding a husband or a wife, instead of finding a man finding his own wife, we got to call a girl a sneaky link because she's dealing with a brother. And now all of a sudden, oh, well, I want to deal with her too. So the pride in that brother causes him to fall for that woman. And that's why, again, so right now we shouldn't gaze upon a maid, right? We shouldn't be taken away by a woman's beauty, nor should we be taken away by the beauty and things that the Most High has created. But Deuteronomy 32, scroll down to verse number, I want to say start at 19. Let me see. Is it 19 that I want you to start? Start at 17. 17.
Verse 17, they sacrificed unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not.
Again, these gods, like the moon, the sun, our fathers didn't fear those gods, right? Our fathers feared the God of gods, the Lord of hosts, right? The Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's who our fathers feared. But nowadays we fearing gods that you didn't even think was about. There's people that literally worship, gravel. I didn't even know nothing about that, right? But there's people that worship some of everything, right? Jump down to verse number just read verse 18. Let's read 18. Right? Let's read 18.
Verse 18. Of the rock that begat thee, thou art unmindful, and hast forgotten God that formed thee.
Right? Hey, look, what does the law say? Deuteronomy 16 and 19. Neither take a gift, for a gift doth destroy it. The gift doth blind the eyes of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous, right? A gift destroys your heart. And because we were given these gifts, we've forgotten the Most High God, right? Like it reads in Proverbs, what's that precept that we just talked about? Where it says, give me neither poverty nor riches. It's in Proverbs.
Is that Proverbs 30?
Try Proverbs 30 and 8.
Yeah, Proverbs 30 and 8. Give me neither poverty nor riches. And then it goes on to say, lest I become rich. Summon it, roughly paraphrasing, lest I become rich and I forget thee, right? A lot of our people have forgotten the Most High God, forgotten who he is because of the things that we've seen. And because of the things that when we seen them, the way they made us feel, right? Again, it's not always monetary value when we're talking about riches, right? Feed me, Proverbs 30 and 8, remove far from me vanity and lies. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with food convenient for me. Verse 9, what does it say? It says, lest I be full and deny thee and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal and take the name of my God in vain, right? So that's why sometimes, like we was talking about on the way home, we was talking about at camp yesterday, sometimes it's good to know your limits, right? Sometimes it's good to know that, hey, you can't really have something. Sometimes the Lord doesn't give you something because he knows who you are. He knows how you'll treat and abuse the things that he gives you. Because again, some people get these possessions and they literally forget who the Most High God is, right? And that's the problem. Sometimes, and there's the other side to this too. It ain't just people that when we went into these other nations, they seen the beauty of the other nations and what they were doing and wanted to partake and wanted to serve strange gods. It was also the left-hand side, right? Verse 9, what does it say? Lest I be poor and steal and take the name of my God in vain. Captivity messed up a lot of our people to where they were poor and needy. And now they begin to steal. And now they begin to take the name of the Lord, their God, in vain, right? So again, that's why it's important to know the Most High God. That's why it's important to read Exodus 20 and verse 3 over and over and over and over again. No other gods before the Most High. Trust and believe that the Most High's word is enough, right? Matthew 4 and 4, Deuteronomy 8 and 3. And know that we should not depart from the words like we read in Deuteronomy 28 and 14. Because again, when we do depart from the words, we become foolish. And the fool have said in his heart, there is no God, right? Now let's jump down to Deuteronomy 20. Go back to Deuteronomy 32, and we're gonna read verse number 20. Deuteronomy 32. We're gonna read 20 and 21.
And he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. For they are very forward generation, children in whom is no faith.
Right. The Lord had hid his face from us, right? And we seen what our end will be. Nothing but pure destruction. Again, Hosea 4 and 6, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, right? We can't have faith without the knowledge of who gave us that faith. You know what I'm saying? So because we followed these other gods, right, as a people, we forgotten the faith of our Lord, or who our faith should be in, right? We forgot to who we should put our trust in. Now let's read verse 21.
21. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And I will move them to jealousy when those which are not a people, I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation.
Right. So again, the reason that I wanted to read this is because, again, it goes right into understanding the situation that we're in today. I know that this is referenced in Romans 11, right? And that chapter is speaking on salvation, but taking a turn to prove that when it's speaking on the Lord is going to provoke us to anger and jealousy, it's just like other precepts that we go to affirm, Deuteronomy 32, which is like 2nd Esdras 6, 2nd Esdras 3, where it's talking about how the heathen nations, they're beginning to be lords over us. They get all these good things. They get all, you know what I'm saying? They don't get punishment for the things that they do. But we're being destroyed. We're being put in bondage. And we're the people that you gave your covenant to, right? The Lord's provoking us to anger. The same way we provoke him to anger when we went off and served these other guys and made him mad. So guess what? He's doing the same thing to us. We went off, so he's going to put us in captivity, and we're going to get mad the same way he got mad. Remember, the Lord is a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers and upon the children, even to the 3rd and 4th generations, right? So we have to put things into perspective when we're talking about dealing with the Lord and understanding who he is and understanding how he operates, right? But going back to Wisdom of Solomon 13, right? Let's read verse number 4 through scroll up just a little bit, right? 4 through 6. Let's read this.
Verse 4. Come on.
Verse 4 says, but if they were astonished at their power and virtue, let them understand by them how much mightier is he is that made them.
Con, you can read 5.
For by the greatness and beauty of the creatures, proportionably the maker of them is seen. But yet for this they are the less to be blamed, for they peradventure err, seeking God and desirous to find him.
Right. So going back to verse 4, right? People don't understand, dang, what's that? These precepts, they come to my head right as you say them. Well, right as we're going through the lesson. But it's this precept that I want to read that's correlating right with this verse. And it's talking about how the Lord set the waves set the ocean in its place that the waters don't encompass the land. Something similar to that. I can't remember the exact way it read in the Bible, but let me if I can find it real quick. Set the bounds of the ocean, something like that. Hold on, let me find that real quick. I'll read it once I find it. Let me see. Is this Proverbs 28, 8 and 29? Proverbs 8 and 29. Let me go to Proverbs chapter 8. Proverbs chapter 8. I'm gonna pull up Proverbs 8 on this side because I want to see if that's the context that I want to use. Proverbs chapter 8 KJV. Let me see. Salakia, when he established. So I'm gonna read this, right? Proverbs 8 and I'm gonna start at verse number 22. So I'm gonna read through this briefly because this is again similar context to what it's saying right here in Wisdom of Solomon chapter 13 and verse 4, right? It says, "The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way before his works of old. I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth. When
he appointed the foundations of the earth.
Khan. Says right here, while as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heaven was there, when he set a compass upon the face of the depth, right? When he established the clouds above, and when he strengthened the fountains of the deep. Verse 29, when he gave the sea his decree that the water should not pass his commandment, when he appointed the foundations of the earth. Khan. So again, this is talking about him being there from the beginning, right? But nonetheless, the one I wanted to emphasize was verse 29, where it talks about how the Lord gave the sea commandment that, hey, you don't go past here, right? Which is kind of crazy because, again, you have this large body of water, right? And you have this large body of water that literally stops in its place. It can encompass the land if it truly wanted to, but it doesn't. So, and that's because of the Most High God. Some people worship the sea and they think it's because of the sea's doing why the sea doesn't encompass the land. Some people worship the land and think it's the land's doing why the sea doesn't encompass the land. But the thing is, people fail to realize that it's the Most High's doing that these boundaries are set and they hold their position firm. You know? So again, that's just to further clarify that when you read certain chapters like Wisdom of Solomon 13, right, it just highlights a picture that a lot of our people struggle with understanding that these creations have a creator, right? Like the brother Azrael said, we don't choose to seek the creator. And you got to ask yourself, what are the origin of these things? Like our people that celebrate certain pagan holidays, we always tell them to get familiar with the origin of these pagan holidays. The problem is people choose to not want to because you don't really care about knowing where something comes from, and that's the issue. That's the issue that we have as a people that we need to do better at, right? I wanted to bring out another precept, but I think that we can stay right here in Wisdom of Solomon 13 real quick, right? But verse 5 again, I'll read these two. Verse 5 and 6, it says, "For by the greatness and beauty of the creatures, proportionably the maker of them is seen," right? It says, "But yet for this they are the less to be blamed, for they peradventure err, seeking God and desirous to find him," right? Our people, I guess you could say, our people err in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? Like even Christ said, "Ye do err, not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God." Our people desirous to find the Lord, but again, you got to remember that our people are also desirous to find the things that please them and pleasure them, and that's what causes us to err in a lot of our ways, right? Let's keep reading on this though. Let's read verse 7 and 8.
Verse 7, for being conversant in his works, they search him diligently and believe their sight, because the things are beautiful that they are that are seen. Salakia. Howbeit, neither are they to be pardoned.
Right. Matter of fact, let's keep reading verse 9 because we was gonna stop at 10 anyway. So let's read 9 and 10.
Verse 9, for if they were able to know so much that they could aim at the world, how did they not sooner find out the Lord thereof? Verse 10, but miserable are they, and in dead things is their hope, who call them gods, which are the works of men's hands, gold and silver, to show art in, and resemblances of beasts, or a stone good for nothing, the work of an ancient hand.
So verse 10 is starting to go into the physical things that men worship that were created through the work of men's hands, right? Now, the ocean wasn't the work of men's hands. It was the work of the Lord's hands, right? But nonetheless, again, it's the same principle applied in verse 10 going on down, the same thing that was being applied in Wisdom of Solomon 13, chapter 1, verses 1 through 9. All of these things that we worship and follow are things that, Salakia, are things that are creations, right? And so my whole message is that we need to worship the Creator because, again, like the brother brought out in Romans 1 and 25, who changed the truth of God into a lie and worship and serve the creature more than the Creator, right? I got another precept to bring. Let's go to the book of, dang, it just slipped my mind. I was thinking about it earlier and I was going to pull it out. I should have wrote that down when I thought about it. But it was a precept that I was going to pull out. Wisdom of Solomon 14. Let's go to the next chapter over. Wisdom of Solomon 14, right? Going back, I got two precepts in this chapter to read and we can close out, right? So let's start at verse number 12. Wisdom of Solomon 14. Let's go to verse number 12.
Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14, verse number 12. It says, for the devisings of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication, and the invention of them the corruption of life.
Right. Matter of fact, start at verse number let's start at verse 9 and read through 11 too, because that is a lot of context and a lot of good understanding of what's going to happen to the things that men worship, right?
Starting at verse number 9, it says, for the ungodly and his ungodliness are both alike hateful unto God, for that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it.
Right.
Therefore,
keep going. I'm sorry.
Therefore, even upon the idols of the Gentiles shall there be an visitation, because in the creature of God they are become an abomination and stumbling blocks to the souls of men and a snare to the feet of the unwise.
Right. And then that's why it says what? For the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication, and the invention of them, the corruption of life. Again, a lot of people, when you go into the creation story, people think it was a forbidden fruit, right? But I really do think that the forbidden thing that Eve consumed was, the worshiping of idols, right? Because again, the tree that she took the fruit, quote unquote, from was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is that people always, the fools, right? Because we've forgotten our heritage, because we've forgotten our law and our customs and the Most High God, and we serve these creations more than the Creator, the fools say, well, God is wrong because I don't serve God because God doesn't want you to unlock your full 100% mind and all knowledgeable, because why would he punish somebody for having all the knowledge to do good, right? But the problem is they forget to admit and acknowledge the second part of that, of good and evil, right? So there's another side of that our people fail to acknowledge that causes us to err in our ways, right? Let's go to verse number 27. But saying that to say, like the brother read and like it reads in the book of Wisdom of Solomon 14, all of them things are going to be destroyed, which is why I was saying earlier that it's just like a cake, right? If you worship the cake that was created, the beauty of the cake, and you glorify that cake. You bow down to that cake, not even knowing that people are going to partake of eating that cake and destroying that cake. They're going to visit that cake the same way the Lord is going to visit these idols and these people that create these idols. They're going to be destroyed together because, again, they cause people to fall. They put a snare in the way of the people. That's why we always say, yeah, we blame the heathen for their hand in our captivity, but we also blame us for forgetting the law of our God, because that's what caused us to go into these snares and fall into these traps that people set out for us, right? Let's read Wisdom of Solomon 14 and 27.
Verse 27. For the worshiping of idols is not to be named is the beginning. For the worshiping of idols not to be named is the beginning, the cause and the end of all evil.
Right. Amen. The worshiping of idols not to be named is the beginning, the cause, and the end of all evil. It was an evil thing for Eve to listen to that serpent and take that fruit, right? It's an evil thing. The same way it's evil in today's time for us to worship creations more than the Creator. Again, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of the Most High God. And the Most High God told us that we should have no other gods before him. He made that clear even in the 10 commandments, that even if you may not know all the commandments that are written in Genesis through Deuteronomy, right? You at least should be familiar with the 10 that he gave us. But the problem is people don't even really know that. Like I mentioned at camp, we ask people and we say, the big 3, right? But you will be surprised how many people profess their faith and they say they believe a certain thing, but then when you challenge them according to their faith to see if they know anything, they don't, right? And I'm speaking specifically about people who say they subscribe to the Bible, they follow the Bible, they believe in God, they have a relationship with God, they identify as Christians, or they may be somebody who's not necessarily Christian, but they still believe and read the Bible. We say, okay, well, do you know the 10 commandments, right? They can't even name them. Because again, we worship and serve creations more than the Creator, meaning that there's people who are serving the Bible and not serving the Creator of the Bible, not serving the Creator of those men. Now, listen, I'm being clear when I say that, as in, again, people have to understand there's a certain way that we please God, and it's not to man's understanding. It's to what he had written in his word, which is why we led with Matthew 4 and 4, to prove that it's not going to be bread alone, right? It's going to be every word that you proceeded out of the mouth. People riding with a Bible on your dashboard collecting dust and you never open it, that's not going to save you, right? Thinking that you have some type of relationship with the Lord. What's going to save you is if you understand that we can't have no other gods before him. So you need to do away with these graven images. You need to do away with certain things that you do on a day-to-day basis that goes against the commandments of the Lord, right? But outside of that, man, I ain't got nothing else. I just want to say that Most High willing, you can receive this message, not necessarily a strong rebuke, but something to give you food for thought, that if you're somebody who worships, nature and creations, Most High willing, you open your eyes to knowing that these things that you worship have a creator that I think that you should give a chance to, because through his grace, you have an opportunity to even view this message, right? Through his grace and his mercy. But did brothers have anything else they wanted to bring out?
Man, mighty lesson. I just gotta say, man, idolatry. We was talking about it before we got on this thing, man. Idolatry is running rampant, and so we do gotta guard our hearts, man. One scripture that I brought up before we started the lesson was John 3:30, right? And everything we do, anything that we worship, right? It all has to be for the Most High God, right? He's the only person that we're supposed to worship. But John 3:30 states, I must decrease and he must increase, right? If that's not happening in your actions, right? If you're increasing your car, if you increasing your woman, if you increasing anything else, right, more than the Most High, you kind of got to reevaluate yourself. You know what I'm saying? Reevaluate your actions and your intentions, man. But mighty lesson.
Con, man. Hey, reevaluate yourself, right? John
My
3:30.
answer, man.
He must increase, but I must decrease, man. Con. At the end of the day, everything we do it for the Most High God, the Creator, the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? Put away these idols, man. Burn your idols, like the brother Azrael did a lesson on many years back. And let's turn and worship the Father, not the sun and the moon and the stars, right? But with that, we say Shalom. Most High willing, you were edified. We'll be back on here again Tuesday, Lord's will, with the brother Danal. So we say Shalom.
Shalom.